Hey friends, I was inspired this week by my friend Andy, who told me a story about getting down on one knee when he's coaching his son in baseball so he can look at his son eye to eye as opposed to looking down on him. And it reminded me of a company legacy story, one of those early ones when I was invited into a war room with a group of stakeholders in the company with a lot more experience than I had, and certainly a great understanding of the tradition of that long held company and the family tradition. And it reminded me of a key point I'm going to talk about here is how much the tradition holds the wisdom and the difference between including people in that wisdom or imposing it on them in ways that make them feel either intimidated or just frankly afraid to participate. So I was invited into this room with one of my colleagues at the time who was a consultant, and he invited me to be a 1099 contract consultant. I didn't know what 1099 was at that time. I never wanted to be one again, by the way. That's one of those takeaways too. But we'll talk about that another time. So I walked into this room and I'm learning from all these people about how we could help them frame up this next level of innovation for their company and really recognizing the value they had created for over 70 years and serve people in an even more valuable way. And I was surprised throughout the day how everybody was so quiet. And Mike was leading the conversation and presenting some really good ideas. And I understood it too because he and I had worked together before. So it seemed like we understood it from that innovation point of view. But as I looked around the room at these people with 25 and even 35 years of experience and more, they didn't seem to get it. It seemed like there was an expression of fear on their face, and certainly they were really quiet. So I said this to him at dinner. I said, Mike, they seem so quiet. I've never seen so much what seemed like fear. He said, yeah, isn't that something? And he just left it at that. And I'm just way too curious to leave it at that. I had to figure it out. So when I came back in the next day, rather than worrying about just listening to him giving his big speeches, I thought I might just get to know people, especially during those breaks for coffee and breaks for lunch, to sit down with one or two people and just learn a little bit more about their story and their part of the tradition in the company. And one of those people revealed something about the tradition that related to five other people who were not in the room. And this person said to me, well, there's a group of five guys who were actually laid off about 2 months earlier, and they were just hired a few days before you guys came in here. And I asked if I could meet them. And so I went down and I met the leader of the team. His name was Steve, and briefly met the four other guys. And then Steve and I just went for a walk. And I asked him if he knew what was going on upstairs in the war room with all these executives. And he said, no, I have no idea. And he said, actually, I have no idea why we're even here. We were laid off and now we're back in the company. And that was the most important part of connecting the tradition and innovation, was that these five guys really felt like the tradition was being imposed on them, and they didn't even know what they were going to be a part of as the tradition going forward. They were just there. They were nice guys, and they were just trying to be included in this tradition by not getting in the way, by not asking questions, and it was only causing more confusion. So they weren't frustrated. They just felt like they were lost and almost still laid off from the company. And that was the takeaway that Andy really reminded me of today. And I just wanted to share that with you as maybe a key question that you can bring to people, is tell me about the story and how you relate to this story, and maybe share a little bit about your tradition and whether you inherited the tradition as another generation or early person in the company, or whether you inherited it from people. Sit down for a cup of coffee in the office and learn a little bit more about people's stories, whether it was inherited or whether they were the one that helped create it. Because those are those take a knee kind of conversations that are great teaching moments for you to learn from each other. And so thanks to Andy for reminding me of how much fun it was to learn from my first coach in Little League Baseball, and make that war room a little bit more of a conversation rather than a confrontation. And so great conversations to come. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next week.